All right, we're live in our last week of the Posture Reset. I want to thank all of you for participating. I hope that you learned a lot in these last 6 weeks about your body and how to better manage it so that you can basically.
All right, we're live in our last week of the Posture Reset. I want to thank all of you for.
That's awkward. All right, we're going to shut that off. I'll be checking in with all of you this week. We're going to do another call. Make sure that we find time in the next couple weeks at least to set up a call, talk about how the program went for you and going forward, just some feedback so that I can make this better. I really enjoy doing this, and I really want to continue to help people move better so that they can get back to strength training or, whatever activities it is that you would like to do, whether it was sports. I think that it is totally possible with the right type of training and good programming. And that's what we're going to talk about today is everything that we did, everything we talked about. It's a process and it takes time. And the relationship with my clients early on is letting them know that consistency over a long period of time is going to make the biggest difference. And some things that we do there's going to be big change that happens fast. But for the most part, after that initial 2 to 3 months, it's going to be a little bit slower, and we're just going to kind of break it down and work on certain things. There is a kind of a hierarchy or a progression to how things are, and that's kind of what I tried to cover in this course. But at the end of the day, appreciating these things and integrating them into strength training, I think, is your best way of having long-term success. So we're going to talk about this a little bit in the PowerPoint too, but my goal with this posture reset is for everybody to feel confident that they can go and strength train and have a better understanding of picking the right exercises that are most appropriate for them, right? And so I hope I was able to accomplish that. If I wasn't, let's talk and let's make sure that you are able to exercise. And I'm going to talk about programming, all kinds of different stuff today. So let's jump into that. So share screen, and then let's get this bar out of the way. Slides and scroll to the top. You guys are all having a good week and had a good weekend for Mother's Day. Okay, integrating strength. This is what it all comes down to, is the ability to consistently strength train so that we can not do correctives for the rest of our lives, but actually exercise and reinforce good position and posture and have the awareness to, when we do have things pop up, like I still have things that pop up. My hip will bother me, my back might bother me, and I have tools to get me back to strength training as fast as possible. And that's what it's all about. I'm going to just do the quick review from each week just because I think it's helpful. It's very similar to how I would train clients. Like early on, we're going to talk about stacking and that ability to get your body in good position. And sometimes this is all it takes, is just getting them in a little bit better position, a little bit better awareness. And I don't have to go into a ton of detail. And picking the right exercises does all the other stuff for me. It starts to decompress them. It starts to get them to have this ability to alternate and fix some of the asymmetry without even having to go into the deeper details like we did. I only go as deep as I need to go with clients. And if you ever saw some strength programming from me, you can see I like simple. Like I like to keep things simple. I like to keep them fun and novel. Like I usually try to give people a lot of variety in programming because I want them to have fun. You can still get strong with a good amount of variety if you know what you're doing. So like I said, starting to decompress areas. I'm keeping this in mind as I go to progress people and I retest them. Like, where are they tight? Where are they still tight? Is this even an issue? If they don't have pain, I'm not as concerned, right? Because if I can get them really strong, a lot of times the things that were bothering them before aren't an issue anymore. Back pain, knee pain, whatever it is. I might have to go a little bit deeper with some clients when they do show some of these more I don't want to say extreme because that makes it sound like bad. It's not necessarily bad. It's just like more excessive compensations in their pattern. Like I'm probably going to take this into more consideration and have a little bit deeper programming mindset around like the quality of their movement before I really get into the strength training stuff, which is what we're going to talk about here in a second. And then sometimes the asymmetrical things will clean up even just with those basics when we start to stack. And I don't necessarily always have to address the asymmetry with all the stuff that we talked about in the program. But if I do, it's usually with people who maybe play a certain sport that requires an asymmetry, um, like racket sports or throwing a ball, whatever. And so we'll take that into consideration and just hope that they can um, not have pain. I mean, it's okay to be asymmetrical and it's okay to not pass all these tests. At the end of the day, like I don't pass all the assessments, but the main thing is like not having pain. Like I want to be able to strength train, do whatever I can. I don't need to be perfect. And that's another thing. I know we talked about some really detailed stuff and it makes it seem like we're chasing perfection. Like we just need to be good enough. Like that's what it comes down to, is being good enough to strength train, do the activities we love. Doesn't need to be perfect. I do think that the foundational movements in strength training cover 80% plus maybe of what you need to stay resilient. And when you can do these movements well and you understand where you're at as far as what exercise is most appropriate for you in the squat, in the hinge, in the pushing, pulling activities, that we're practicing those regularly. And just from experience, like if I now don't normally take clients once a week unless they're doing other activities on their own. I really love for people to at least train twice a week, and that's in person. And if I'm going to do programming for somebody online, then it's usually a minimum of 3 days a week. And we're really trying to at least hit all these movements in some capacity twice throughout a week, and usually changing intensities and tempos. So sometimes we're moving heavier weight slow, sometimes we're moving weight faster. Like I want people to hit all these different spectrums of strength and speed, and just get a lot of practice with these movements, because it feels good when you can start to do these things fast too, right? That's probably been the biggest change in my knee pain over the last few years, is just integrating jumping again and moving quickly. And I would love for everybody to be able to do that again, because I think if you want to be able to run or you want to be able to play sports like that, that's a really underrated part of strength training, is that you don't always have to come in and move really heavy weight. You can do these movements with lighter weight and just learn how to move faster. And so I thought it would be most appropriate to just talk about how we might program running, strength training without pain, maybe like just if I were to go to just complete movement quality, and like kind of the balance between all of this stuff. I think they complement each other really well. Running is a very popular goal that I help clients with. And so I just want to give you a little bit of understanding of what that looks like. And we'll actually look at a couple of research articles that I followed for my knee recovery. I think they're just generally great standards for everybody, not just people who have injuries, but so in general, just some ideas about strength training. Remember, we're trying to build strength in better positions so that we don't have to do the correctives forever. And we don't need to be perfect. Getting stronger, even if I didn't work on movement quality, getting stronger could potentially help people minimize pain. Ideally, from everything that I've learned, I think integrating both is really your best bet. If we just focus on movement quality, sometimes the stimulus is just not enough to really lock it in, right? If I only do the breathing activities and some of the like easier lower level drills that we did where you're not really like pushing the intensity, you might have to keep doing them forever. Like I want you to be able to do some of those activities on the ground where we're doing some breathing, like the sideline activities where you're learning how to get in and out of your hips, and then use them in split squats and single leg RDLs. And like, it's basically giving you that same feeling of like, okay, this is what I should feel when I do this. Let's go lock it in. Let's get really strong so that at the end of the day, I can run, jump, whatever, and not have issue. Choosing the appropriate exercise for a skill level is by far the most important part of strength training. It's probably the issue that I see most in the gym, is people coming in and, racking a bunch of weight up on a back squat and, training quarter squats. There is a place to do that. Like training quarter squats can be good in a program, and it is a tool if used appropriately. But I think for most people, like general people who are trying to get strength and people who are trying to build muscle, getting into better positions where it is comfortable to go into at least a 90-degree squat. Like that's how I train all my clients to at least be able to do that. Also depends on the type of squat, but especially for a back squat, if we're not getting through that, we're just not getting as much out of the exercise. And maybe there's some things that we need to clean up in order to hit that. And so loading the pattern when you can't go through it is just more risk, right? There's still going to be some gains, like they're still going to get some strength out of it, but is it worth the risk? Like when does that happen? And for me, loading up a quarter squat just doesn't make the risk reward just isn't there for my background and everything that I've seen in the gym. Learn how to do a goblet squat at full range of motion first and be really good at that and then progress. And so taking into consideration some of the biomechanics that we talked about, all these assessments is great. It gives us an understanding of where people are in their pattern. So if they're restricted in an active leg raise and their toe touch, I'm probably not going to have them deadlift from the floor because how are they getting there? What are they using to do it, right? And like I'm going to put them in an environment and in a position where they can practice hinging safely and use the right muscles and then slowly progress down to the floor. And I think we just need to be humbled by the fact that we don't necessarily need to do the highest level lift. Like there are ways to make it easier and more appropriate for us to like feel the right things and so that we can be consistent, right? I'd rather you go lighter on the weight, really lock in the movements and then slowly progress than overdo it and then risk getting injured and then not be able to train. Consistency is key. This is like lifelong, right? And so this is kind of what I want to talk about is like a minimum dose for this stuff to be effective and like really stick. And I've had so many people that I've talked to, especially online, start having a conversation. I want to see if they're a good fit for working with me. And a lot of people just really aren't trying things and they're not actually putting in any work. And so that's not a great fit for me. If they're not already trying things, then I'm usually not interested in building a program for them because I'm not sure that it's going to be successful if they haven't actually started to put in some work. Like I think people got to take a little bit of initiative in their bodies, and I want to work, especially online. It's a different relationship, right? Taking that initiative that they're going to do at least a certain amount of activity, and they're going to at least try a certain amount every week, and setting time aside. Like there is no time. We talked about this last week. It's about creating the time, making the time to do this. So if you really want to make long-lasting change in your strength and your posture, whether you came into this course because you wanted to manage pain or you just saw some things about your posture over the last couple of years, especially with the lockdown and all that, like things changing, it is going to take, from my experience, you could probably do once a week, but it's going to be limited. Like you'll make gains probably for the first couple of months, and then it'll plateau, and you're going to need a little bit more stimulus to actually get the body to adapt. And so, from my experience, once a week training, that plateaus pretty quick. Still better than nothing, right? But ideally, we try to hit all of those movements. If we're only training once a week, twice a week is better. I've had some clients that have been able to consistently progress with just the minimum of training twice a week where we do full body exercise. Ideally, the minimum, this is like the ideal minimum, is that 3-day split where we're doing mostly upper lower body or like overall, what they call full body workouts with an emphasis maybe on one or the other and focusing on maybe speed one day or depends on the person's goals, right? If they want to run or are they somebody who likes the powerlifting stuff. I have trained people in different types of programs for that. The 4-day split is like the optimal. That's definitely what I try to follow, where I'm hitting upper body, lower body 2 times per week, giving myself enough time to rest in between those. And it typically looks like a heavier lower body day and then like a speed lower body day, and then either a heavy upper body day and a speed lower body day, or an upper body day that's focused more on hypertrophy and repetition, like a repetition, what's the word? Training, repetitive training, where it's more hypertrophy, like volume, looking like these jacked animals here in the picture. But long story short, there is no like wrong answer. It really depends on how much time you're going to commit to having these long lasting changes. And whatever you can be more consistent. If it is just once a week, starting with that, see how it goes, and then it's better than nothing, right? And if we can bump it up to twice, then you're going to get even a little bit more progress, and maybe that's all you need to manage your body to do what you want it to do. But I think everybody should be strength training a couple times a week and practicing these lifts, and it's just going to, the return on investment to make you more resilient to the world around you is, it's just I've seen it for now a decade. I've seen people even in their 80s, 70s commit to doing this, and they make progress really quick, and they reinforce it, and it's just amazing how much more resilient they are to injury. It's really awesome. So I'm going to pull up a couple of articles. I just want to talk about running, and I like these articles because although this is directed towards people who have injuries, I like the progression and the way of thinking that there is like kind of a milestone you want to hit before you do certain things to be safe, right? Just kind of prove and own your body so that you're ready for the next thing. And so with running, I really like the programming to favor all the tests and assessments that we talked about, that we're working on those pretty diligently, because that all goes back to gait mechanics. And if you're going to be running, you're going to be putting on a lot of miles, and that ability to alternate and strike one foot after the other should demonstrate a minimum level of strength, and the ability to do some level of plyometrics. So that ability to do a single leg hop is one of the tests that we'll see from one of the articles. And basically programming should prep your tissues for whatever the demands are. Like if you need to do a 5K, 10K, like how far do you need to go? Are your calves, or is your body strong enough to actually go through that? Or are you going to end up cramping and compensating with your gait? And like we want to prioritize quality of movement, and then really drive in the preparation for being able to maintain those mechanics as long as possible so that we can be efficient, effective, and really minimize the risk for injury. And so it's funny because I follow, his name is Sean Light. He worked for the Lakers. He was like a physical therapist. He has a similar background with some of this biomechanics stuff. And they do a lot of calf work for basketball players. And traditionally in our education with the Postural Restoration Institute, they talk about, well, the calf is actually, in gait, can be a place where people cheat and they end up overdeveloping their calves and not their hips. Anyway, when it comes to athletics, we got to be able to prep those tissues. And so he actually has an interview with another trainer that he was working with at the time. And he's like, why are we doing so much calf work with these guys? Like, you've got to be able to help them get through the demands of their sport without getting injured. And that's why they get paid, big money. Is these multi-million-dollar athletes, they got to keep them healthy in the best way possible. And even though, basketball might not be great for your biomechanics or for your gait, they need to adapt, and they've got to put in the work. So there's this balance between biomechanics and actually just getting stronger and developing the elasticity, the strength to whatever activity that you want to do. And that's just the point I wanted to get across. This biomechanics stuff is awesome. It's really been life-changing, not just for me, but for a lot of my clients. And I really hope that you've seen some really cool stuff in the last 6 weeks. But it's a long-term journey. And I think that's all I want to say about that. So let's pull up these articles and just talk about return to running, because I think it is important that people understand this minimum level. So this is like after an injury. It wasn't necessarily ACL. I think this particular article is just injury and having these milestones. I can share this article with you guys if you want. This is the same protocol that I use to overcome my ACL injury. And so being able to progress your limb symmetry through the strength of your legs, super important. Having a progression, a walk run. I recently chatted with somebody who they went for a 5K or something without any training after their surgery because their doctor told them they were good to go, and they ended up having a strain through their calf. And this is a progression. Like we can't just jump. I don't know. That's a relationship with the doctor. I think that I would love to chat with more health professionals, like getting on the same page and really getting people prepared for whatever it is that they want to do in life. I appreciate their expertise, and I never like talking down about a physical therapist or a doctor or anything like that. But I think we can all get on the same page, and just understand where all of us fit into the pieces of the puzzle, so that people can actually get back to doing high level stuff. But you can just see, even with this, there is a progression. Um, the next article I liked a little bit more, actually, because it's the plyometric one. Because before doing a lot of this running stuff, I think you should have a good base here of being able to do jumping and plyometrics and understanding. I really like this. They're very similar to the CSCS standards, which is basically strength conditioning standards that we learned in college, and that's one of the more recognized certifications for strength conditioning. Being able to get through your full ranges of motion, balancing. I do this test with a lot of my clients that I take for online knee stuff, knee injuries. Being able to balance on one leg, and then can you balance on one leg with your eyes closed? A lot harder than it seems. And then the ability to get to a quarter squat to half squat on the single leg with no pain, being able to really stabilize that. And then these particular free weight squat at 1.5 to 2.5 times body weight, it's a little aggressive in my opinion. I don't think you necessarily need to be able to do that to run. But I think you should be able to hop on one leg for 30 seconds to a minute. If you want to go out and run, you probably need to be able to do longer than that if you want to run further distances and have good control and really be reinforcing those assessments, screens with the right strength training activities, split squats, squats, single leg RDLs. Those are great exercises for really locking in the strength required for that activity. A lot of calf work. I've been doing a lot more calf work with runners and trying to integrate some of this stuff that we've been doing, like a 90-90 hip lift, with actually, doing more of the calf raise off the wall and like integrating that so they still feel their hamstrings as they strike through their entire foot, so they keep the best position possible, even though doing these long distance runs might not be the best thing for their posture, because they're probably going to get tired, they're going to break down, and then what does your gait mechanics look like then, right? It's fine. Sports are inherently have risks for injury, and we're just going to do our best to minimize that. But there's the progression, like being able to do these activities, like the basics, like being able to squat. That is a good goal, to get up to 1.5 times your body weight. As I've gotten closer to these milestones, my knees have felt a lot better, and my back's felt a lot better. There's something to be said about demonstrating and being able to express a certain level of strength. And we can do it within all the stuff that we learned in the last 6 weeks. I think you guys are going to be feeling the best I've ever felt. Like, there's just no way around it. Like, you get stronger in a better position, it's life changing. I think that's really all I wanted to talk about for that. So let's get back to this. I think I wanted to jump into like a little bit more strength stuff. No, that's it. So what I'll have you guys do is let's book a call. Let's talk about how the last 6 weeks went. For this week, I didn't program, for those of you on True Coach, I haven't programmed you yet. I wanted to kind of chat with you and see what exercises seem to make the biggest difference for you. And this week, I just want you to do those things. I want you to do the things that seem to have the biggest impact. At this point, we've gone through a lot of different activities, and we've got to try out a lot of different things. And now I kind of want to see where are you at, what worked really well for you, and see if we have some similar feedback. I'm really curious, because I gave you guys a lot of different things to work on. And so, again, thank you so much for taking the time to join this program and learn. And I'm excited here in the next couple of weeks, I'll start promoting the next round and trying to refine anything I can do to make it easier, to make it better, get you all results faster. That's what it's all about. I will not take up any more of your time here. I hope you guys are all having a good